Hey, I'm Magnus, and in this video I'm going to go over my ayahuasca ceremonies and how someone like me can be a complete alcoholic and be drinking for 15 years and then just quit overnight and have that deep urge to drink and that voice inside my head who was always telling me to drink and have that vanish just overnight, alongside with my 2.5 year long depression, who was always making me feel that life was dark, meaningless and depressing and there was no joy to anything. Like all of a sudden I could wake up and I could see how beautiful life is, and I got a gratitude towards life and a love and compassion towards others that I didn't really have before. In many ways it feels like I finally managed to escape prison, because I was stuck in such a dark place where I could not enjoy life without alcohol. Like it was impossible. Like I could sit on Christmas Eve with my family and I would not be able to enjoy it unless I had alcohol. And once I got like one sip, then it sort of activated all of those areas in my brain that stimulated good emotions. And it's pretty scary if you think about it, because that means that I'm such a slave to alcohol and I'm so not in control that I don't really know what to make of it, to be honest with you. But even though I was battling depression, alcoholism, loneliness, struggling financially, like not once did I tell my family like how I felt, because that's just not something guys do. Like, at least so I thought. Like guys never admit weakness and they never ask for help. And this ability or inability of asking for help is something I've been struggling with since I was a child, and I'm going to tell you that story in a minute, and also how during my first ayahuasca ceremony, like how we started to fixing this, like small, by making small steps and learning how to ask for help, because it's something that I've never done. In many ways, it's a miracle that I'm even here to tell you this story, because as of today, I could have died 6 times so far. And I've lost 3 friends, all to drugs and alcohol. And last year I lost a 4th. And when I'm thinking about it, it's actually a 5th who jumped in front of a train when many years ago. But so many better and greater people than me have lost their lives, all young guys who died way too soon. But the most terrifying fact about all of their deaths is that none of their close ones even knew how bad they were feeling until it was too late. And the same was true for me. Like, I didn't tell my family how I felt, and I was one step away from taking my own life, because after 2 year long depression, going from bad to worse, then in the end, like all I wanted was to wake up and not be in pain, and just wanted the pain to stop. And imagining suicide and not being here anymore would give me a great sense of relief. And that is the only reason why I have decided to put myself in the light here today. And I'm going to confess and share some stories that I've never told anyone, that my family doesn't know about. In fact, it's going to shock them, and people are not going to be able to see me in the same way ever again. But that's fine, because I know that there are many people out there who are hiding in the shadows, like they're depressed, they're not happy, perhaps they're drinking or doing drugs, or worst of all, they're suicidal and they're thinking about ending their lives, but they're not telling their closest ones how they feel. And that is completely fucked up, and it has to change. So if I can do anything to help, then I feel like it's my moral obligation to do so, regardless of what people will say or think about me from this point forward. Because I'm just so incredibly grateful that I'm able to enjoy life again. And I think everyone deserves to live a happy life. Because here's the thing, like, beating alcohol is the hardest thing I've ever done. But because of that, like, my life has never been better either. But I could not do it alone. Like, I tried so hard for 2 years, battling depression, alcoholism, loneliness, etc., until like I could not take it anymore. It was either I get help with this or I'm going to kill myself. And unfortunately, some of my friends, they opted for the other way, which is an absolute tragedy. Now, you're about to join me and my friend and my brother Alex, who I am going over these ceremonies with. But the thing is that him and I have just had a 9-hour conversation leading up to that moment of everything in my entire life that it's relevant to the ceremonies and that is relevant to my story, really, because some of these things that we started fixing with the ayahuasca, like for example, the inability of asking for help, like it started as early as when I was 6 years old. And if I don't tell you that story and how bad it was with my drinking, then you're never going to understand or really appreciate the significance of what happened during these ayahuasca ceremonies. And that is why I quickly have to give you the quick summary of my entire life, or the things that are relevant with the ayahuascas, and I will do that like as fast as I can. Yeah, so we might as well go ahead and start with the not being able to ask for help and explain that. Like I mentioned, that the earliest memory I have of this is when I'm 6 years old. And on this particular day, then I'm at daycare and I'm on my way to go into one of the playrooms there. But in front of me, there's another boy who's also going in there, and he doesn't see me behind him. So on his way in, then he slams the door behind him, and I get stuck with my hand and with my thumb in the door. And then I just stand there. I totally freeze in that moment, and I'm also very surprised that it didn't really hurt too much. But then time passes, and maybe after like 20 or 30 seconds or so, then eventually, like one of the teachers, she runs over to me, like, "Magnus, for fuck's sake, why don't you say anything?" And I just look up at her like, and shrug my shoulders, because I didn't know what to say, and I didn't know why I didn't do anything. Before that day, in kindergarten, like I've only heard stories, what happened before that. Like for example, I was born through a C-section, and the very first thing that happened to me is that the doctor, he cut too far in my mom's stomach, so he actually cut me in the head, right above the ear here. So instead of going to the arms of my loving mother straight away, then they took me away for stitches. I have never really felt bad about that experience. Like, I'm grateful that he didn't cut me in any significant part, like the eyes, the ears, or the nose, or anything that could have or would have significantly injured me permanently. This was like quite an insignificant injury, but I do think that it's a sad way for anyone to begin their life on this beautiful journey. And then I was in a car accident when I was 1 year old. My mom, she was driving like half the family, and then my dad was driving half the family as they were moving in Sweden. And then she crashes with a truck that comes full speed with an extra cargo, and I'm sitting on the passenger seat on the side of the impact, and I'm 1 year old. Luckily, she manages to go a little bit further, so it's like it's not a clean hit, but it hits like the back of the car. And Dad, who's driving behind, says that it's less than a millisecond, and I wouldn't be here today. Yeah, and then there is another. I was in a drowning accident when I was 6 years old. We were visiting my grandma or grandpa in Gotland, Sweden, and this day I was on an air mattress in the water, and I couldn't really swim. Like, I was a very poor swimmer, and then all of a sudden it got really windy, and the whole thing started dragging me out. And I remember like the panic in my dad's eyes as he's swimming full speed after me, and I just keep going out. Yeah, and I've heard my dad tell this story from his point of view. The winds were so powerful that the whole air mattress were almost lifting off the water with me on it and dragging me out towards the Baltic Sea. And then there is this moment where he's swimming with everything he's got, but I just keep pulling further away, and he's screaming for me to get off. But I'm very hesitant because I'm a poor swimmer and I could swim like a little bit inside the pool. But there is an entirely different thing to swim here in the open water in this wind and with these streams like pulling me out. So yeah, I was very hesitant. But then I have to make the decision and trust him. But if I happen to lose the air mattress with my arm here, then yeah, that could have very well have been the end for me. But luckily, I managed to break the speed enough so that he manages to catch up with me, and we managed to get back to shore unscathed. So yeah, I had these things happening to me quite early, but it's like I have never really felt bad about them. And more like grateful that like I was lucky still, like I got through it. But my mom and my dad, like they always told me, like I was always so closed, and I didn't say much, even as like a baby, as a little kid, and I have always had a very hard time to express myself in words and how I was feeling. And when something would happen, like I would make a mistake, I would get embarrassed or get sad or angry or frustrated about something, then I would just shut everyone out and they couldn't reach me. And I remember like in detail, like my mom, she's trying to sit me down, like something has happened and I am really like sad about something. And she's like, because she has no idea what has happened. And she's like, Magnus, if you don't tell me what's wrong, then I can't help you. But I never would, because I didn't know how to open up and express myself, even as a young boy, like 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. I couldn't do it, even to my parents. Like, I remember in detail, like on my birthday, I don't remember which year, but yeah, so I have 7 brothers and sisters, and we grew up like pretty poor. Never had any money with so many kids and that type of thing. So the only time you really got something was on your birthday. So, and this day it's my birthday and we're heading to the supermarket and I can pick out like a toy that I want. And yeah, I find this game. It's like 40 bucks, 400 kroners ish. And I see this like fancy plastic around it, this new thing. And my older brother, Andreas, he told me, it's like, yeah, well, I still don't know exactly what he meant. But yeah, he was three years older than me, and he's perhaps still smarter than me. And he says something like, yeah, with this, it's higher value, so it means you can sell it for more later or something like that. I don't even know. But so I take this game, and we're at the checkout. And on, like just before the checkout, there's this pile of games on discount. And all of these games are for 100 kroners, like 10 bucks ish. And I see the exact game I have in my hand, in this pile. And the thoughts are telling me I should drop the one I have in my hand with this stupid fancy plastic and go for this one in the pile without the plastic. But I don't do it. I go ahead with the game I have in my hand. And afterwards, all of these feelings just rush over me. It's like, fuck, I'm so stupid. I made a mistake. And I just like, I get so emotional and I shut everyone out. And they're like, what happened? Did anyone see what happened? Because if they didn't actually see what would happen, like maybe someone was mean to me at a playground, maybe I tripped and fell on the asphalt when I was running, or I got sad about something, like if they didn't see what actually happened in person, then they had almost no chance of getting to the bottom of it. And this day, like it would have been so easy to just go back with the receipt and change the game. but I was too embarrassed to have made a mistake, and I felt like shit, and I felt like a loser and such an idiot for making that mistake. So I never changed it, and I felt so bad about it. And they never found out why I was feeling so bad. Like, it was my day, it was my birthday, and so they couldn't figure out why on earth I became so upset. And these behaviors, of course, like not being able to open up and express myself, it carried with me until adulthood and into my relationships. And yeah, I was very insecure, like from the age of 10. Like, I was playing a lot of sports growing up, and then later I quit those and only played computer games and isolated myself there. I didn't like socializing and talking to people. And yeah, I guess it became better when I started drinking and partying when I was like 18. Then that started happening like quite regularly. And in the beginning, I was drinking beer. I didn't enjoy it too much, like it made me tired a lot. And then later, a friend of mine recommended vodka instead, which I enjoyed a lot more because it sort of boosted me up and gave me an easier way to express myself and do things and become more outgoing with that. But during this time, yeah, I guess from 18 until 23 or something, then I was very lost, insecure. I was like jumping from job to job. Like, I was working as a bartender, electrician with IT, like being unemployed, and that's those type of things. And I couldn't really find my way. Like, I was so lost and I didn't know who I was. So I was getting picked on a little bit. I had a hard time standing up to myself because I was an easy target. I didn't get bullied per se, maybe sometimes by stronger guys that would, yeah, they would tell me to, we were at a pre-party, they'd tell me to go and get the drinks. They would maybe decide to meet when we show up, then they show up late. They borrow money, but they don't pay it back or even live rent-free because they see a way of using me. And this was making me incredibly like pissed, like, of course. And yeah, during this time, I didn't look very good. I mostly sat behind the computer. I exercised a little bit, but never really got in good shape. And I was struggling with girls a lot. I was rejected like by pretty much every girl. Like, I couldn't get a girlfriend. But I didn't know who I was. So it was pretty much impossible for any girl to see herself with me either, because I was coming up to them, I mean, if I happen to speak with one, like in such a needy, in desperate mode. Like, I wanted a girlfriend so that I could feel better about myself. So I was already broken with a very flawed foundation. And this, like being rejected by girls, is what led me to find personal development, dating coaches, and self-awareness, because this, for the first time, then it got me to see the world instead from the inside looking out, then I saw it from the outside looking in. So I started questioning and looking over my beliefs and my mindset and basically the core foundation of my entire personality. And I found out that the whole thing was absolutely flawed and had to be tear down and rebuilt brick by brick. What I mean by this is that I had no real confidence. I only had a situational confidence, is something I realized. And a lot of it was, for some reason, it was tied up to my hair. Like, it was really silly. I don't know really where this came from, but for example, in 4th grade, I remember a day when I was in school and it was raining outside. And then, like, after being outside in the rain for one of the breaks, I come in to the classroom and I looked myself in the mirror, and I thought that my hair looked better when it was like wet for some reason. And that made me feel better, happier, and more confident. And it got so bad that if I went to the gym and my hair wasn't fixed and I felt uncomfortable, if I was out in a nightclub or bar and I had like an awesome night, I had a good time with my friends and a lot of fun. And if I then went to the bathroom and I saw that my hair was off, then my mood would crash and I would have a shit night from there on, unable to recover. So my confidence was tied up around this. And basically, it was dictating how I was feeling. But through personal development here, then I started compare myself to like one of my friends, for example, like one of the coolest and nicest guys I have ever met. And one time he went to the hairdresser and he told her, do whatever you want. And he comes out of that session with purple hair and spikes. But here's the difference. He was smiling, laughing, thinking it was funny, and he didn't let it affect him the least. He just thought it was like a fun thing to do. But me, in the same position, I would have been devastated. So what I did is that I started going through these kinds of situations and realized that it's not about the hair in this example. It's about how you view the hair. Because you could have put my hair on him and he wouldn't have let it affect him the slightest. So yeah, then I basically started a rebuild and going through one more of these destructive and flawed thinking patterns I have. And I had like quite a lot. Like for example, I could tell jokes that I didn't even think that was funny, but maybe some of the cooler guys would like them. And I might have, or I did, like dress in a certain way that even though I didn't really like it, I didn't think they would fit me, then other cooler people, that's how they dressed. So I did it to fit in and to be like them. But every time I did this, I felt like in my stomach that I'm being untrue to myself. I'm acting in a way that isn't true with me at all. And yeah, that started my first big transformation when I was like 23, where I had to tear this whole thing down and stop doing all of these stupid things, even if it meant being alone and going at this alone. Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention about my hair that day in 4th grade when it was wet is that I kept running out, like every single break. I kept running out in the rain just to get my hair wet. And when the rain stopped, then I continued to go to the bathroom just to wet my hair so that I could continue to get like that good feeling or get permission by my brain to feel better and be happier, which was like, it's a silly and ridiculous thing, but when you're a kid, like you don't really know any better. And I can't say where these insecurities came from, because in my earlier days, like from like 6 until 10, I was very confident. I had like long blonde hair and stuff, and I didn't really care about anything. But somewhere along the line, I lost that and I became insecure about it. And another thing about this that I used to do is that, I don't know if you've noticed, but I have like pointy ears. It's like I'm the last elf of Sweden or something. And this was something that I was really insecure about, like growing up. So I used to go to the hairdresser to tell them to cut my hair, to try and hide like the tip of my ear, because I didn't want to show it, because I was embarrassed about it. By going into this personal development and looking within, then I started to let go of that, because I realized it's not about the deformity in itself. It's not about the hair itself. It's like how you view it. So I started accepting that this is me and I'm going to own it. This is how I look. Because many people today, like they think that there's something wrong with their eyes, their nose or their lips or whatever it might be. Even like many guys do more plastic surgeries than ever nowadays. And that's the thing, like one person might be insecure about something in their body, but another person in that same body wouldn't. So it's not really about that part itself. It's about how you view it. And that you can change inside your mind. That's what I realized there. And also, yeah, that my confidence, it had to come from within and not from without in certain situations, like when my hair was fixed, when I was drunk with my friends, or after I bought like a new pair of jeans, or when I was working behind the bar, or like some other specific situations. But I had to evolve so that I could, yeah, feel good inside my own body. And this whole started here. It's a bit strange for me to look back at this during this time when I was 6 until 10, because then I was so sure of myself, like I had a very good confidence. I had no problems like tackling challenges. I was very happy and optimistic. Like I was taking the bus to my sports classes alone. I even one time, like my older brothers, they played hockey, so I also wanted to play hockey. And one Saturday, I packed their stuff and took it up on my shoulder, and I took the bus from the ghetto to the hockey arena, and then back from that class. So I had no problem like solving problems and tackling challenges on my own, because I realized very quickly that we had to sort of take care of ourselves during this period when, yeah, I was like 6 until 10, because then my parents, they lived in different cities. So all the kids were staying with mom, and yeah, I guess she did the best she could and didn't really have time for all of us or any of us. So yeah, we sort of had to take care of ourselves. But I flourished in that environment, and yeah, I was very popular with girls also during this time. Like I had 2 girlfriends in 2 different cities and that type of thing. And yeah, up until 10-ish, then I lost this thing, whatever you need to be good with girls. Then I had it, and then I lost it. And after this, yeah, I guess I was dating my first real girlfriend when I was 17 and just turned 18. It only lasted for like 5 months and didn't really have any time to get serious. And then, yeah, it took until I was 27 for me to land my first real girlfriend and have my first long-term committed relationship. And that's something we're going to hear about shortly in the video. And yeah, in the summer of, or the year of 2014, then my drinking and my partying, it took on a new level, where I was living in Budapest and I was going out 5 days a week, drinking a bottle of vodka each night. And yeah, it got so bad that one day I was shitting blood, and I was visiting the hospital, and I also got my like liver tested and checked out. Yeah, it turned out to be fine, but this is sort of when my most destructive drinking was starting to shape. And yeah, during this time also, like I was trying to get my first real little business off the ground, and for basically for 10 months straight, I spent, yeah, I was flat broke, living in Sweden then, and yeah, I was doing like taking 6-hour bus rides one way to trying to catch like one meeting in Sweden. I was cold calling, like making videos, sending out videos, and for 10 months straight, I only made one sale. So I was sleeping on like friends' couches, on my mom's couch, to try and make this and get this thing off the ground. And after, yeah, roughly 10 months, then it finally did. And then the next year in 2016, I just traveled. I worked on my business, making money, and partied, because that was sort of the dream that I had then. And I don't know, after 2016 and having the thing that I worked so hard to get and getting it, and then realizing just how empty it was, I think that's what caused my depression. Because in January 2017 I became depressed, and then I battled this for 2.5 years, and over this period my drinking also took on like a more destructive and bad path. Like for example, I quit going out drinking. I mostly drank home alone, and I go to one of my friends, like there's a birthday celebration for him in Spain in June in 2017, and there's like a party trip. And during that time, then I drink for 5 days straight. And on the 5th day, I'm so hungover that I have to drink one bottle of vodka just to stop feeling hungover, and then I drink another bottle of vodka throughout the evening to get drunk and to stay drunk. Yeah, and that's the most I've ever drank in a single day by myself. I drank 1.4 liters. And the hangover that followed the next morning is one of the worst I have ever felt. I woke up shaking, walking over to the water and just trying to get something in me. And I drank 18 liters of water that day. It was like filling a black hole, like I couldn't quench the thirst inside of me. Yeah, about the alcohol also, like in 2015, I tried to be sober for 100 days and I made it till day 43. In 2016, I tried to be sober for 100 days. I made it to day 67. And now in 2017, after my friends, this party trip, then it's my 30th birthday in July. And I decide not to drink that day. I mean, after what I just did, and I just couldn't do it. But I drank a few weeks after that, so it wasn't really a big achievement or anything. But a friend of mine recommended me the book, The Easy Way to Quit Drinking. And after reading that book, then, yeah, I managed to stay without alcohol for 116 days. I beat the 100 days. I got a little bit further than that. And then I'm in Sweden to celebrate Christmas with my family. And this evening, I've just been with Dad and his wife. And we're going into the city. And the moment we step out of the car, I have a nervous breakdown. Because of the stress and everything that have been built up like inside me. Yeah, and that sort of did it for me. Like I was sober during this period for 116 days and I got a nervous breakdown. Not from the alcohol, of course, but it made me like it doesn't even matter, even if I'm sober. Like this goal of 100 days, it didn't change me at all. Like reading this book and being sober, it changed nothing internally inside me. It did for my friend though, I want to clarify that. Like he actually, yeah, he felt like he didn't want to drink again and yeah, stayed sober for like 5 years. But after having that nervous breakdown and being sober for 116 days, then I came back to Budapest where I was living with my girlfriend and I saw no point in staying sober. So my drinking, it got probably to my worst point of my life where I would just drink home alone. Sometimes I didn't eat or drink any water. And yeah, I would go to the gym drunk. I would like go for runs outside drunk, work drunk, take meetings drunk. And yeah, I think somewhere maybe in 2016 or so, then I had gone from a party guy to becoming an alcoholic. And it was a very subtle way of how this happened because it started when I was 18 and the only thing I wanted was to go out and have fun with my friends. And then like a decade later, I was like a full-blown alcoholic and it was like a step-by-step thing. Like no one else did this for me. Like I drank every single one of these drinks until my brain got completely consumed by alcohol. And it was the addiction of it took over my entire brain. So it made it, I hated every moment of being sober. And even when I wasn't drinking, I didn't enjoy it anymore. Like I couldn't enjoy even small dinners or gatherings or any social occasion without alcohol, without feeling like complete shit. One thing I forgot to mention here is that my hangovers, they have always been bad. Like ever since I started drinking when I was 18, I've had to spend the whole next day in bed. But after a decade of drinking, it started to affect me so extremely bad mentally. Like it got so bad that it would affect me for 5 days. So if I drank on a Saturday, then the whole next day, Sunday, I would be in bed all day exhausted. And that was the case even since I started when I was 18. But then Monday until Thursday evening, it would be like I was in a dark cloud where nothing gave me any joy, and it didn't matter what I did to try and escape it or feel better. Like I could exercise, I could take supplements, I could eat food, I could have sex, I could go out in the sun, I could go for a swim, like whatever. Nothing made me feel any better. The only thing that made me feel any better was waiting for 5 days. And then it was almost like I could time it on a watch, where on Thursday evening, life would start to shine up a little bit again. And I would realize that, oh, it's not all bad. There are actually some good things in life. But yeah, during this time, like it made me feel so incredibly powerless because nothing I did made me feel any better. I have even counted and realized that at the age of 33, then I have spent more than 1 year of laying in bed and being hungover. But even when alcohol affected me this badly, then I still kept going, which in hindsight, and when you look at it from the outside looking in, then it is complete madness. But there is another thing on how you're thinking when you're stuck in this destructive cycle of alcoholism. Yeah, over the next 2 years or so, then I battled this. On top of that, was also depressed. My depression, it got from bad to worse until in the end, when after being depressed for 2 years, then I got massively suicidal. Like it wasn't a single day when I didn't wake up and wished that I wasn't alive anymore. But I was also closed, unable to ask for help, which was carried with me since my childhood. And even though like my closest ones, they could see on me just how bad I was feeling and what terrible spot I was in. Even though they could see it and they asked like how I was feeling, I still denied it, or I told them I was fine. And I even pulled away and shut my girlfriend out, who I was living with and who we loved each other. Because I figured this was my struggle, no one else's. And I hated myself. So I didn't think that, I don't know, like I was in a bad spot, and I was a person that I didn't like, or I hated. And I had absolutely no empathy or understanding for just how difficult my situation was, that just having one of these problems would have been hard enough. But to battle it all at the same time for so long, like, I got so incredibly tired of it. Like in the end, then I just wanted the pain to stop. So, in January of 2019, like this year is one of the, one of the darkest in my entire life. Like in January in 2019, now my depression have made me suicidal. Like I think about it every single day. I'm in Sweden, and I'm going up from my hometown to a city nearby to visit some of my closest friends. And I bring my laptop and some of my stuff with me in my backpack, and I go straight to the bar. And then we start drinking, or continue drinking rather, and then I lose my bag. I didn't hang it in the clothing area. Instead, I kept it like near beside me, and then I lose it. And that was basically everything I had in that bag. Like I was flat broke. I was working on trying to get my business off the ground. Like I was working in the tattoo industry, and trying to do that. And the moment I lose my bag and my laptop, I'm just like, that's it. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. And I tell my friends, like straight out, like, I'm done. I'm going to take my own life. Like I can't stand this anymore. Like I'm so tired of fighting and being so incredibly miserable and unhappy, and that life is just gray and dark. So we started talking about this, and they basically say, they question if they should drive me to the hospital, or like, I can't do this. Don't you understand? It's selfish of you to do this. And then I tell him like, but don't you understand it's selfish the other way around? Because you don't want me to die because that would put you in pain. But I can't live like this because now I am in pain. So it's selfish the other way around. Yeah, and then the bag shows up. That's the thing, like, I've lost at this point 3 friends who all killed themselves because of drugs and alcohol. And I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying my thinking there was right either, but you can understand it. Yeah, so, and then the bag shows up. But now the cat is out of the bag. And now they realize just how bad this really is and how close to the edge this really is. So this happened in January. And then in February, less than a month later, me and my same closest friends there, we are having Thai food in Sweden, takeaway. And we're sitting at home at one of my friends' places. And I get a chicken bone stuck in my throat. And this is, as I said, during a moment when I'm the most suicidal and I think about it every day. And I get this bone stuck in my throat and I can't breathe. It is completely shut in like a situation that only happens in the movies. And then these thoughts start coming to me like, well, Magnus, if you don't get this out, then that's it. You know, there is no other way to play this. And I'm contemplating in taking this out here. Like, no one would blame me. They would all think that it was an accident and there was just nothing he could do. And as I'm sitting and contemplating this, like I'm surprisingly calm in the situation. Like the time slows down, so I don't think I hold my breath for that long. But one of my friends, he sits across the table and he looks at me straight in the face. Magnus, are you okay? And I look at him and then I do the only thing in that situation that you're not allowed to do. I couldn't speak, but I gave him a thumbs up. Yeah, and then the next thought that comes. No, Magnus, this is not how you fucking go. Can you imagine like what a lame way this would be to go out? Like, this is not it for you. And that became my primary motivation for even attempting to get this out. It wasn't because I wanted to live. It was because I didn't want to die that way there. And that, yeah, it's very dark. It's, yeah, it's unbelievable. The next month after this, in March, then it's my dad's 60th birthday. It's a surprise dinner for him. Like he is expecting to have dinner with his wife, and then he shows up and all the kids are sitting there. And yeah, you surprise him. During this dinner, I get so drunk and basically turn into a drunk monster. And I do things and I say things that, yeah, I never thought I would. And in my mind, then I basically ruined his whole 60th surprise birthday there. And to a person that I love to death, like there's no one on this planet I have more respect for. Like he's my hero since childhood and he always will be. And then I do this to him. Like I never thought that I would cross this line, but I did. And he says that, yeah, you didn't ruin it for me. I don't know, I think he's being a little bit nice about it, not wanting me to feel worse. But yeah, I did. And after he wants to meet, like a couple of days later, it's like, I wonder if that was a cry for help, he says. Yeah, looking back, yeah, I was definitely, yeah, I couldn't be in a worse place. And then in May, I see one of my closest friends in Hungary. Okay, so before we jump into what happens in May in 2019, when I met one of my closest friends there in Hungary, then I have to tell you something that happened between him and I, roughly 9 or 10 months before this, when I traveled down to his house just to spend the weekend with him, like hanging out, drinking, and shooting the shit, basically. And he is one of my closest friends, but he is also like an expert in body language, human behavior, and psychology, and that type of thing. And I barely have time to enter his house until the following conversation happens. So he asks me how I'm doing. Hey man, how's it going? Good. And you? Yeah, good. So how is everything? Good. And you? Great. So how have you been lately? Good. And you? Cool. So how is everything going? And then I look at him and there's this pause. And I'm contemplating in letting him in. And I want to clarify here, like the first 3 times when he asked me, they were completely automatic. And on the 4th time, I got a little bit annoyed. And it's like, is he fucking deaf? Like, can't he hear me? And then when he asked me the 5th time, I'm like, okay, so this guy, he's not going to stop. He wants me to let him in, obviously. And then there's this pause where I contemplate if I should let him in or not. And then the next thought is, what do I have to lose? So I respond to him, I have been better, which is a very, I guess it's one way to put it when you are heavily depressed and you're thinking about suicide. To which he responds, all right then, stop lying to me. I can see you're not well. And I think it's really something to learn from this conversation. And that is like we were sort of butting heads here, and me not opening up to him, it wasn't just him. It was all the times when I refused to let my parents in, even when I was a child, and everyone else who tried to get through to me, even my girlfriend that I loved and I was living with at the time. All of these people who have failed to let me in. And then now in this moment, I was like, what do I have to lose? And how he handled this situation, like how he persisted because he cared about me and he refused to give up, even though we were sort of butting heads and I was stubborn, I didn't give up. He, through just caring and wanting the best for me, he also refused to give up. And he did it in such a non-threatening, resistant, loving and caring way that, it was just beautiful. It was just brilliant in how he did it. And there's something to learn, because asking a person who is depressed on how they're doing is pretty much meaningless, because they're always going to tell you that they're fine. And leading up to this conversation, I know for a fact that anyone else only lasted like 2 times. Like they would ask me how I'm doing and I would always respond fine. And then after that, they asked me, so everything is good? I was like, yes, everything is good. And that would be the end. But this one, it came until 5 times, like 5 walls before I even thought about letting him in. And after this, we talked and I shared with him how I was actually doing. And I admit it felt pretty damn good to finally let someone in and let someone know how I was feeling. So I didn't have to like carry this by myself. I could actually like let him carry the burden with me and get some advice from him of his point of view and what he thinks I should do and that type of thing. And it was a relief to do that and to finally like choose to not carry this alone and to go through it by myself, which was something entirely new for me. Yeah, the video cut out there for a second. But if you know anyone that is depressed or perhaps worse, thinking about killing themselves, then by all means use this strategy, because it's a very effective way to get through to them. That is, yeah, in a way that is very non-threatening, loving, and caring. And if it worked on me, like even though it took 5 times, then yeah, it has a pretty good chance to get through to other people also. But yeah, let's continue now with the video and what happened when I met my friend here in May of 2019. And then in May, I see one of my closest friends in Hungary, and I basically tell him, it's like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I've been thinking about suicide and that type of thing. And he gets really upset, like slams me against the wall. And it's like, don't you understand you have people that love you? And I give him this look. It's like, just beat me up if you want. I don't care anymore. And yeah, he saw that. And yeah, 2 weeks later, I get offered to work with him and move to Holland to basically drop the working in the tattoo industry I was doing. I worked with that for 18 months. I couldn't really get it off the ground, which of course didn't help my situation. And now I got offered to move to Holland and Rotterdam, and being surrounded with some of my other closest friends there and work with them and build this new dating company. And that was, of course, like a fresh start for me. And me and my ex, we've been together for 5 years at that time, and we were torn of what we were going to do. If we're going to stay together or not, if she's going to come with me or not. And initially she didn't. And I moved to Rotterdam in June. The ayahuasca, my first one, is in September, so bear with me. I moved there in June, and then I traveled a little bit during the summer with her. And then in August, the end of August, there is this, we have a party trip in Sweden. And I basically drink 6 out of 7 days during this week. And on the 7th day there, like on the Sunday, then we're in Copenhagen, and I'm supposed to fly back from Copenhagen to Holland later that evening. And during that day, I just drink vodka straight up the entire day. I don't eat anything, I barely drink any water. And this was a very common thing, like during this time, like drinking vodka straight from a water bottle. Like I would hide it, or I pour it into a water bottle so it looked like I drank water, or maybe soda water. Or I would have a Diet Coke and pour vodka inside it so it looked like I drank Diet Coke. Sometimes I could even lay in bed next to my friends or alone and drink vodka just straight up all day. And sometimes when I would have been out after a night drinking hard and wake up, I would crave vodka and alcohol over food and water. Yeah, so this day in Copenhagen, I get to the airport in the evening, and I'm so incredibly poisoned that I feel like shit. And I call my girlfriend at the time on FaceTime by mistake. And I basically tell her I don't want to live anymore. And she is devastated. She doesn't know what to do. She's in Hungary, and I'm about to go on the flight. Like, the only good thing about that is that, like, before going into the airport or through security, then I had to dump the vodka I had in my hand. So I had to quit drinking there. And so I call her and I tell her I don't want to live anymore. And then I get on the flight. I show up in Amsterdam airport, and I try to buy a ticket to the train, but none of my cards are working. I don't think I have any money left. The only thing I have is a 200 Danish kroner bill. And I go up to one of the guys who's getting his ticket, and I ask him, it's like, can you please get me a ticket also? I can give you this. And he takes one look at me and just sees like how much pain I'm in and how fucked up I am and how much I stink vodka. And he's just like, no problem, man. He gives me the ticket. And that train ride, like it was a slow train from the Amsterdam airport to Rotterdam. It took like 1 hour, and I started to get hungover there, and I was just like shaking and just like dazzling, and just like I had no water either. And I get home like maybe 1 or 2 in the morning, and I'm so fucked. I'm so poisoned, and now the hangover is kicking in. I don't have any alcohol in the house. I don't have any like sleeping pill or anything. And it's like, this is a situation when the risk of suicide was at the absolute highest. I was all alone. I was in a worse condition than I might have ever been. I didn't have any way to turn it off, like with a sleeping pill or something, or even alcohol. And I sit on the edge of the bed, and I just like, I can't take this. Okay, so if I would kill myself, then how would I do it? I already knew that I would hang myself, because yeah, I would cut the blood to the brain in like 6 seconds, then I would pass out, and that would be it. And then I figured I don't even need to find a place to hang it. I can probably just wrap it around my neck a few times and tie a knot around it, and then that would probably do the trick equally as well. I don't need gravity. So I start thinking about these creative ways I can do this, and then I reach for and I grab my belt, my jiu-jitsu belt. And then the next thought comes to me. Don't do this. If you do this, you will never see what you're capable of. You have been through all this pain without the happy ending, and you will never know how the story ends. Don't do this. And that thought, it came to me at the right second there. And it was a good thing that I had to get rid of my alcohol there before the flight, so that I was sober enough, like not drinking for 3 or 4 hours at this point, so that I could hear these thoughts. Because I can guarantee that the person who is about to take their own life, like they are getting the same kinds of thoughts in their minds, but a lot of them, they are intoxicated, so they don't hear it. The very next day, I found out that you could do ayahuasca in Holland. And yeah, ayahuasca, it saved my life. I basically signed up like a week later. So now, I think you have a pretty good understanding of where I was at this stage of my life, and where I was at mentally, how dark this really was. So yeah, now finally let's sit down with my brother Alex and listen to these ayahuasca ceremonies, and how I got the help I needed to get through all of my issues and get the help that I needed to become happy in my life.